At yesterday's grand jury reading, Kentucky's Attorney General Daniel Cameron pleaded with the country not to be violent and motivated by social media influencers, celebrities, and pundits. During the press conference, Cameron tried to mitigate emotions of the folks by sharing more on the evidence behind the charges that were dismissed in that case. But obviously, that didn't work.
While there are 6 possible homicide charges under Kentucky law, these charges are not applicable to the facts before us because our investigation showed, and the grand jury agreed, that Mattingly and Cosgrove were justified in the return of deadly fire after having been fired upon by Kenneth Walker.
Well, with all of the chaos and unrest, and now even more attacks on our brave law enforcement officers after the grand jury decision in the Taylor verdict, I wanted to have someone on the show that's actually walked the beat, but also knows the law front to back to discuss not only the Taylor case, which of course is a horrible, tragic accident, but also the senseless attacks on our cops, the BLM movement, and the defund police movement. So my next guest, he's a retired cop, a lawyer, and the author of a book called Beyond Black Lives Matter, Building Knowledge and Understanding. Elliot Spector joins Real America. Mr. Spector, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Thanks, Dan. I'm fine. I'm happy to be with you.
Let's talk about what's going down in Kentucky. Another city, riots, burning, cops attacked, cops shot, all over what folks have been portraying for months since the tragic accidental shooting of Miss Taylor. They called it racism for months. All hell breaks loose. Cops are shot in the chest and the head. You used to walk this beat. You also have a law degree. You know the law front to back. Let's talk about your reaction when you heard the verdict and then you saw what went down.
This was a verdict that I actually expected. We know at this point that there was no no-knock warrant. We know that the officers complied with the knock-and-announce rule. So the only issue in the case is whether or not the deadly use of force, which unfortunately killed Breonna Taylor, was objectively reasonable at the time. And of course, no one could dispute the fact that if a police officer is being shot at, the deadly use of force in response to that is objectively reasonable. And the Attorney General could have no other finding. The grand jury, simply by understanding the law, could not rule in any other way.
Yeah, let's talk about what our young men and women face when we send them overseas. The rules of engagement. Can't shoot until shot at. These cops were being shot at. Now again, I'm not laying blame on the new boyfriend who they said obtained that gun legally. He was probably in a deep sleep, didn't hear them say cops, but witnesses did say they knocked on the door, they announced themselves, then they broke in. You do that in my house and I don't hear you, I might pull out a gun too. To me, this was a tragedy all around for everyone involved, but it was not a racist killing like they are trying to portray and they're using for their narrative to push this leftist agenda. And it just disgusts me to no end.
There is no evidence in any of these cases that are celebrated in which there are protests and destruction of our property and destruction of lives. There's no evidence that these are racially motivated. I think the biggest problem with this and many other cases is putting the entire event in the proper context. I mean, these officers were there because officers have a responsibility to reduce the number of deaths in our society that occur because of the illegal use of drugs. In 2019, there were approximately 71,000 people that died of drug overdoses. There are other people that die because there are drug wars, because there are crimes committed because people are seeking the drugs, because people are committing suicide because they're on drugs, because they're posing a risk of serious physical injury or death to others. And it's the responsibility of police officers to reduce the number of deaths. The reality of the situation is police officers are out there saving lives. They're saving lives of black people, who are many of the 100,000 people that are dying. I mean, actions speak greater than words. And the reality of the situation is every single day, police officers are out there every single day in every single way, serving, helping, protecting, and saving the lives of black people. These are the people that really care. The people that are attacking police officers, they are doing nothing, but their actions are counterproductive. Because by attacking police officers, we know for a fact that good police officers are leaving the job, that there's fewer people that are willing to join the ranks of law enforcement.
Right. New York City Police, I read an article, highest retirement in the history of their department. They're just running away from it. More police chiefs, sheriffs around the country. I saw a map the other day online of about, I think, 7 to 10 states where they're just retiring. And in a lot of cases, Elliot, some of these police chiefs and cops that are retiring, leaving early, are black. And they're actually being attacked in the streets by these protesters, which a lot of times, the Antifa ones, are young white kids. We won't go there in that whole mess. Let's talk about the Defund Police movement. I saw that in addition to your new book, Beyond Black Lives Matter, you also had written a handbook or manual for police officers back after you were a cop on the beat, walking that beat every day in Hartford, Connecticut. I want to talk to you about the Defund Police movement. And I'm going to talk more about this in my Get Real segment at the end of the show. I don't know how they say in one breath, we want change. We want different styles of policing when they come to different disputes so they don't always escalate. But then they want to defund police. You can't defund and then want them retrained. Can you explain that for them? Because you've actually helped train cops.
Well, it's got to be the absolute opposite. What they have to do is they have to provide more funding for police officers, because unless police officers in the community work together, there can be no reduction in the crime and harm to society. And by protesting and attacking police officers and negatively affecting relationships that are so important to policing, where police depend on the eyes and ears of the community, that we have to work together to try to reduce crime and protect members of our communities. And defunding police officers is absolutely counterproductive to that end.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of this stuff that we're talking about, and we've been talking about on this show over the past week and a half, is common sense stuff. And I know that the American people just want honesty. They want truth. They want facts. And in this case, if they listen to the facts, they would not be out in the streets doing what they're doing. This movement obviously is pushed by some folks, very powerful and very wealthy folks that are organizing this. I want to talk about your book before we leave you, Beyond Black Lives Matter. Tell us a bit about it, why you wrote it, what people can experience if they read it, what's going to open their eyes up to.
I wrote that book because I was upset on this war on police officers that started approximately 10 or 11 years ago. And I saw this book as necessary because the people that were attacking police officers didn't understand what the reality is of policing. And they didn't understand the law. They didn't understand what police officers go through. They don't understand what police officers are really like. In fact, the reason I became a police officer is because when I was in college, it was during the period of the civil rights movement and the Vietnam War, where there were protests. And I didn't like what police officers were doing. So I said, well, you know, I'm going to become a police officer, so there'll be one less bad police officer. And what I quickly learned when I joined the Hartford Police Department, that all of the people were just like me. They just wanted to help members of their community. And these people that are attacking police officers, they have not ridden in a cruiser. They haven't worked with police officers. They don't know the people that, you know, fill the ranks of our police departments. And it's because of this, we can call it ignorance or just because they're ill-informed, that they believe that police officers are bad people, and that is simply not the fact.
Yeah, that I totally agree with you. I don't know if you can see me. I always like to wear the thin blue line flag and show my support as a local reporter for years. I did so many ride-alongs with you guys, geared up, went on calls, did the training. I know the 1 to 3 second rule. That's about all you have to respond. That's not a lot of time, folks, in real life, because those cops have families. They want to go home too. And when you've got 1 to 3 seconds to react, it might be your life or someone else's. It's a different world. And people can sit there and play Monday morning quarterback and critique our cops all the time. But until you put the badge on and walk the beat, I'm sorry, keep your mouth shut. Elliot, Spector, thank you so much for joining us. Great insight. Again, the book is called, remind me, it's Beyond Black Lives Matter, and you have a subtitle there. What's the subtitle? Building Trust and Understanding Through Knowledge. Thank you. Building Trust Through Knowledge. Elliot, thanks for joining Real America. We appreciate it. I'm sure we'll have you back on.
Thank you.